Hello, I'm Bruce DuPois. Coming up, getting a handle on the district's public safety challenges. A key lawmaker reaching out to the community in a search for answers. We'll talk with two longtime neighborhood activists, and we'll take your calls.
From News Channel 8, this is News Talk with Bruce DuPois.
So good to have you with us on this midweek edition of the program. Thanks very much for your time this time. There have been 110 murders in the district so far this year. That's a staggering 41% increase over 2014. Councilman Kenyon McDuffie, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee at the Wilson Building, says the killings and other acts of violence have left families and communities across the capital city devastated. That's why he's holding a special hearing on the matter today to, as he put it, discuss the steps that the city is taking to prevent and respond to violent crime, to address the underlying causes, and to prioritize community responses to what we must view as a public health crisis. Ron Moten is a longtime D.C. community activist who has mentored young people and helped squash neighborhood beefs. Co-founder of the Peaceaholics. Dr. Natalie Hopkinson is a fellow at the Interactivity Foundation, an author and an adjunct faculty member in the journalism program at Georgetown. Welcome to you both, an important topic. Thanks very much for your time. Ron, since you and I were last here, since you and I last spoke, what thoughts do you have about what's driving the increase and what the city and the broader community can do about it?
Well, the city still doesn't have a comprehensive plan with working with the community as it has been done before and throughout the country in the past that has worked. There are a lot of knee-jerk things being done, but we haven't put things together. And opportunity, a lot of people don't have opportunities in the city, and we've lost hope. You see despair, and we have hopelessness and despair and no cohesive plan to deal with it. You see what you see in Washington, D.C. and throughout urban America.
Ron makes a good point, Natalie. There are many cities dealing with similar challenges at this moment in time, but that does nothing to reduce the sense of urgency that I know residents feel and city leaders too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of these cycles of violence are cycles, and so there are surges that historically happen. And one of the things that I think is important for us in D.C. is that we have a long track record to build on. I mean, we're a city that, you know, with each election cycle, we have fresh ideas on how to combat these problems. And what I think that we as a community need to do is to think more historically about what sort of investments we've made in people, in institutions, in organizations, so that we can build on some of the solutions that have worked before in the past.
A lot of people are pointing to very systemic issues and some long-term things that we can and should do to build a more peaceful world for our children and for everyone. But for political leaders, there is that sense, and I don't think it's just about optics or political considerations or whatever. There is a sense of needing to do some things now. Not everything can be on that long-term track. Do you have a feel for for how some of those energies might be best directed?
Yeah, I mean, I think something that's important is to not react, you know, immediately react on a policy level when something has happened. So some of the proposals that we've seen come up, we were talking about this before, cameras, you know, cracking down on returned citizens, all of these things we know these are not solutions that work very well. You know, there's been some talk, I think Cortland Malloy at the Washington Post has really brought up some of the issues around some of the successful interventions that have happened in the past. Peaceaholics, organizations like Ron Moten's, and he's one of many activists in the city that have really invested in building relationships with people on the street, on the ground, so that when something happens, it's not often a surprise, you know, when these outbreaks are happening. So if we can continue to make those investments as a city in organizations like the Peaceaholics, like Squash All Beefs, I mean, there are many organizations like that, so that we're not just reacting with some ridiculous policy that we know isn't going to work, and it's just going to lead to more mass incarceration.
The phone line's open as we discuss the surge in violent crime that we've seen in the District of Columbia and across the nation in several different urban centers over the course of the last few months. If you have a question or comment, if you'd like to join the conversation, we would love to have you take part in it. Our number here, as always, and we've posted it to the bottom of the screen, 703-387-1020. Grab an open line now. We would love those of you watching live in the the 11 a.m. hour. That's when we're able to take calls, and I hope you will join in. Dial the number we've posted to the screen, 703-387-1020. We'll go to the phones as your questions and comments come in. I read the same column, Ron, that Natalie did, Cortland Malloy, talking about some of the very strategies that that seem to generate so much good and brought so much positive attention to the organization you and Jahar Abraham founded.
Well, the thing is, it's scientifically proven. If you get bit by the snake, the antidote comes from the snake. If you read the Bible, God always used people who've been through things that had testimonies to come back and help people who are going through the same thing. So it's almost a natural fit, right? So what we do is we take the ideas down from those people and we try to institutionalize it through government without those people being involved or engaged and having the input to make it organic, right, or authentic. So I'll give you a prime example. So you say, okay, we're going to deal with the 50 worst people in the city. There's some conversation about that, right? But how do you know who the 50 worst people are in the city? How can you even get them to come to the table? People don't trust government, and government can't love. People can, right? So when you involve people and work together with the government, like it has been done in the past, you get results. You get 41 truces, right? You deal with problems that they're not even under the government radar. Like we're talking about black men, but what about the females? 91% of the 15 to 17-year-olds in Ward 8, where the murder rate is up 95%, right, are being raised by single parents. The majority of them mothers, and the majority of them have a father that's in prison. The children, right? So when you are putting a plan together, you have to put all this in the plan and look at this from a holistic approach, and we're not doing that.
And that's what I think Councilman McDuffie is thinking about and talking about as he describes, and we said this in the outset, in the setup, the language, public health crisis. Does that ring true to your ears?
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, you know, it's been said that violence is a form of communication, and what we're seeing many neighborhoods in the city communicating is this rising inequality there are. Like, it's coming as a shock to many people in the city that this is going on, but these are slow crises that are very deeply systemic, deeply structural, that end up manifesting in this way of is violence. So it really requires an ongoing, sustained response, not when there is a crime scene, but, you know, investing in the neighborhoods and making it sort of an ongoing thing that's part of the way that we do business as a city.
Can't help but wonder what Marion Barry would be thinking about and saying and doing at this moment, were he still and this is not to cast aspersions on anyone in office now, but you know, it took Marion Barry an hour to get through the Safeway, not because he was a slow shopper, but because everyone came to him with something, some information, a need, a story, a desire to connect. I wonder what he would be saying, thinking, and doing right now.
I'll tell you what, Ms. Bowser, Mayor Bowser, has said she had a lot of conversations with Marion. I know that to be the fact because me and Marion used to talk, and he used to tell me about the things he told her. And I can say from early on in her tenure that she's been doing a lot of things that he would have done, like the on-the-job training programs that she creating, the LEAP program that she creating, expanding summer jobs, but also connecting them with a case manager to connect those young people to work. And a lot of young people who were in my summer job program have gone on to get jobs after the summer job program. So she is definitely doing some of the things that Marion Barry would have done. But my thing is, we got to make sure that we keep the community engaged in a part of the process, and it has to come from the grassroots. It cannot be led by the government. It cannot be led by the Metropolitan Police Department. It will not work like that.
To the phones, line 1, Linda in Northeast. Thanks for calling in. You're on the air. And go right ahead, please.
Has Mayor Bowser at all considered what the president has done? You know, he's at the top, and he has had people such as groups like Pizza Haulers come to the White House and implement policies and suggestions as far as reducing crime spike. Has the mayor talked with any of the members that Ms. Hopkinson had mentioned as having a roundtable with people such as Mr. Moulton and others to find solutions, you know, on the ground to try to reduce crime?
Thank you.
Well, I can tell you this. I haven't personally talked to the mayor about bringing in the programs. I've talked to some of her staff about doing it, and so have other people, but you know, it's all about the action. So my thing is we need to get brothers and sisters who have been in the trenches to be a part of the solution, because people have built relationships. Just think about it. Whatever you say about Peaceaholics, you invested $10 million in me, right? So you're going to invest $10 million in me and then let it go to waste? When you know that I can do what I do. I've been doing so many things without money over the last 4 years and getting results, right? The capacity and the magnitude of the work needs to be reincorporated into our society, because the work has never stopped.
And I want to add to that, we, as a city, I hope that this, you know, one of the hopefully more positive outcomes of this spike is that it forces the city, and I'm talking about the entire city, not just Ward 8 or Ward 7, but all of the city, to really think through what direction we're going in as a city. It should not fall on just the shoulders of the Peaceaholics or any single organization. This is not a black problem. This is not a poor problem. This is a city problem. And it's actually a national problem that is affecting many urban cities. So I personally would like to see some more ownership of this issue from within other areas of the city. I'd like to see other organizations step up to the plate, faith-based organizations. It could be all sorts of organizations, a variety, coming from a variety of diverse amount of perspectives.
You mentioned faith-based organizations. I happened to hear a sermon, when was Sunday? 4 days ago, where the sermon was about Dr. King's call and desire to create the beloved community, and the notion that love and relationships are central to that work. When you think about what Dr. King advocated, when you think about the sorts of relationships that were at the heart of your work, the credibility that you had, the work and have, dealing with individuals one-on-one in small groups. Programs are important, funding important, long-term solutions important, but the other piece is important too. Essential, maybe.
Well, one of the things that somebody who worked with King taught me, because I did a lot of studying under a lot of his soldiers, his generals and generettes, like Amelia Borton Robinson. One of the things that she said that I'll never forget that she told me, when your conscience is telling you to do something, listen, because it's God telling you what to do. I know God is telling a lot of our politicians and people in the community to do the right thing, but do they have the heart to do it? Another thing is that they taught me is that hurt people and heal people heal people. There are a lot of hurt people in our communities right now, right? But what are we doing to heal them and then let them be a part of the solution? That's the answer to this problem.
Do you think we step up? Do you think we see the sort of response that generates progress?
That's my hope, and that's actually my expectation. I am an optimist. I believe that we are making progress as a city and as a country. But we have to look at it's not just a public safety issue, it's an education issue. I mean, we have hyper-segregation in the city in pretty much every institution that exists in the city. So we really have to examine those as well. Kids not having a school to go to, kids not having a neighborhood school, a lot of children falling through the cracks, families falling through the cracks. So it's really looking at this in a very holistic way, and also just understand that the extreme privilege that we're experiencing in the city really does come at the expense of other people who are in the city. So looking at how all of those things work together is going to be really important for us to continue to make progress.
Natalie Hopkinson, Ron Moten, important topic, important conversation. Thank you very much for your time this time.
Thanks for having us.
Both again. We appreciate you being here. We will step aside. We're back, though, with much more News Talk right after this.